it is intended to keep things simple and keep the specs out of the art and make art. But cell phone people that want a camera still want something that's a little bit smaller. You know, if you're a working professional and you need a good solution, that's what LUMIX cameras are amazing for. They like making cameras, but they're not a camera brand. And so
Sigma just released the Sigma BF, which seems to be gaining a lot new attention for the L-mount space due to the aesthetics and minimalistic design this camera brings. Now, later in this conversation, we are going to be touching point about the Sigma BF versus the LUMIX S9, which, spoiler, different cameras for different markets. But joining me today for this podcast conversation is none other than himself, the Sigma Boi, Anson. What's up, Anson?
Sigma Daddy?
No.
Sigma Daddy.
I'm never calling you that. You'll be the Sigma Boi.
Oh my God. What's up, Matthew? How are you?
I'm doing great. This is like I said to you, this is my first time filming in this proper YouTube studio space that I'm building out right now. So this is the first time filming. Probably won't be the first video going on my channel, but for people to know, This is the first time filming. But anyways, Anson, can you just give my audience just a little bit of context on why you are or should be known as one of the biggest people or channels that talk about Sigma and like who you are, because I feel like you are probably one of the primary people and only person I personally know that shoots on a Sigma camera. So just give my audience a little bit of context about who you are and kind of what you do.
So I'm Anson. We'll start there. No, I run a channel called Anson & Co. Where I am with Sigma, I've used the Sigma FP, FPL, and now the BF is on pre-order, which I'm pumped about. So I've been shooting Sigma for years now, probably, not as much as people that have been using the Quattro and some of the Foveon sensor cameras. But I started shooting with FP in like 2020, fell in love with it. It was my A cam for a good year and a half. I made that thing my A cam for a good year and a half, and continue to make YouTube videos, for Sigma cameras. And so, yeah, when the BF came out, I jumped on my request to get it in hand, and have already made a few videos about it, and we'll continue to make some more this year.
Dude, that's sick. I'd love to hear kind of your first impressions of the Sigma BF, which I found out as I'm doing research for this episode. It doesn't stand for boyfriend. It stands for beautiful foolishness, which is kind of ironic because I feel like that is actually a good description of this camera, where it's a beautiful camera, but in a sense of what it can do, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's a beautiful camera that's really kind of foolish in a sense at the same time. So I'd love to hear kind of your first impressions, especially since you have like it actually hands-on and are shooting with it as well.
Yeah, of course. First impressions. It's funny. I haven't even given a first impressions for my channel. Maybe by the time this goes live, I will have. But my first impressions for it is one, aesthetically, it's a beautiful camera. You have this, one piece of aluminum body that is just gorgeous. I tricked a friend of mine in the fact that it was an Apple camera. And so I think that's the thing that is catching everybody's eye is just beautifully designed and offering something different in that aspect. We get so used to cameras that are, the normal black or, with the S9, we got colors, which were fun, but it's still kind of like same general vibe as a normal camera. And so having the aesthetic there is nice. But beyond that, it's a great everyday camera. I take it with me with my 45 2.8, and this is my setup, and you might not be able to see that because the LUMIX is focusing on my face. But it's a small, compact setup for everyday use. One thing I love about the camera is Sigma is intentionally making it really hard to find the specced out nerdy things about this camera. There's some specs on their website, but there's no listing of dynamic range. There's no listing of what's the optimized ISO, for the best dynamic range opportunity. They're very much kind of playing things close to the chest as far as that's concerned, because, going back to the idea that this camera stands for beautiful foolishness, it is intended to keep things simple and keep the specs out of the art and make art. And honestly, like, I kind of felt that with the FP for a long time was, I could have these specs. It's a spec'd out, I can have a lot of these things at my access, these tools, but at the end of the day, like, it's about what I create with it. And this camera just really makes you think about what you're creating rather than what frame rate you're creating it, rather than, what resolution it's in. Yes, it does do 6K at 24. Technically, they took the true 24 out, which is interesting. But 24 frames per second, it has false color, it has L log or Leica log, which is beautiful. I wish every camera had Leica log now. And so, there's a lot of things that it has the power to perform, but they are very intentionally keeping it very simplistic and pared down. And I really do like it for that. And I took it out for my first night street photography kind of walk around last night, and it was a lot of fun to use.
Yeah, and I definitely heard that, like, from Marcus Brownlee when he was talking about this camera. This is like the Apple of cameras, and not in terms of what this camera is capable of, because the entire website, from my knowledge, was really selling the experience and design of actually using this camera, and like you said, not as much of the specs or the photos. Like, it barely showed any photos or any videos that this camera actually took, because when you even look at them, they're not like the greatest photos out there. They're like, no. All right, this is good. Like, but Leica log is also a great example as well. Now, I am curious, since you do have this camera hands on, what is that shooting experience like? And maybe we can compare this to shooting on the LUMIX S9, for example. But I'd love to hear kind of the UX design, the shooting experience. I know you're familiar with the FP, but also give us kind of a context of people who might not have ever shot on the Sigma FP and what it's like shooting on this camera, because I feel like the experience is what's selling this camera more than the specs that this camera is capable of doing.
There's two sides of it, right? Especially now with no accessories, or not really limited accessories at this point. There's the handling, and then there's just the user experience or the software that drives it. The handling, I will say, if you've shot with an S9, I would say it has a little bit of an edge, and pardon the it's not really a pun, but I mean, it's literally like very edgy, but it does slightly edge out the handling of the S9 without a cage. The thumb stud they chose for this camera, it just grips way more than what the S9's thumb grip does. And so I found that, yes, I do wish it had some sort of small handle to it. But it's small enough to where I've ordered like one of those like point and shoot, fanny pack type things just to put in my, put in there so that I can just walk around without having to hold it in my hand. And so the handling is surprisingly comfortable, to kind of wrap that all up. The user experience, the only thing that there's even two sides to that, because the only thing that's kind of frustrating about it right now is there is a single USB-C port, which in theory is really cool because you don't have to worry about a ton of things. I like the fact that it also shoots, all the storage is internal. So it has a 230 gigabyte drive inside of it, and you shoot to it. And then when you want to offload footage, you can actually hook up an SSD straight to the BF, and you don't have to, tether a computer or anything like that. But with that said, the USB-C port is tricky. Like I can hook a microphone up to it. Like I can hook my Shure SM7B through my interface to USB-C and hook it up that way and use that. I can hook a monitor up to it. It obviously charges. I can do headphone monitoring out through like a media hub. The only thing that is kind of throwing me right now is I can't seemingly find a solution that will allow me to do audio in for microphone and a monitor out. And I don't know if that's because software, hardware, whatever. I've used a couple different media hubs and it's just not giving me the opportunity to. So there's a little bit of workaround with that, which again, I can appreciate because it's almost like they're forcing you to say, this is not what this camera's for. This camera is for simplicity. When you start giving, the ability to do some of those things, you're inevitably going to have people that have used the FP as A cams where you're trying to like makeshift so many different things. And so you're having like a full on production rig after a while. And again, it goes back to, it's not what this is for. And then I was going to say the software, that drives it, is very simple. I don't have any issues with it. Like it's super easy to find things. Being that I'm used to like a LUMIX or even for that matter, an FP menu, there was a learning curve for the oversimplicity. But it still is very intuitive. There's only a couple things that bug me. Like I can't use frame markers and my rule of my grid at the same time. Like it's either or. And so there's little things like that, but for the most part, like the software is really easy to handle.
Yeah. And I'm curious to hear your take on who the target audience is for this BF camera. I have some working theories that I've heard online just in different things like that since Sigma is so known more for all of the lenses that they make, and they make really good lenses, and being a part of the L-Mount Alliance and different things like that I have a theory that there's a certain rule I would imagine with Leica that you can't make blank camera that competes with the Leica cameras. So they had to probably make something completely different, but that still kind of was going towards that target audience of Leica cameras, where people kind of like the idea of having a Leica camera that's $4,000, but they just can't spend that much money. Granted, the BF is still $2,000. And I know a lot of people compared the S9 to a Leica, which in a sense, it does definitely give a very similar vibe, but there's a lot more control and power behind the S9, which at the same time, because there's not as many limitations on the S9, it makes it harder to say who the S9 is specifically for because of that. Because you can be like, well, you can use this as a B or a C camera. You can use this as a YouTube camera. You can use this as a dad camera. You can use this for blank, 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 blank. The Sigma BF, I think, kind of pits a lot more limitations, like you said, with the headphone jack, with the markers, with the grid, different things like that, using the USB-C only to kind of transfer footage, doing the audio, monitoring everything on that. So it's hard to do multiple things, meaning it's less likely this is going to be your only camera if you had to pick one camera. So I'm curious to hear kind of your thoughts on what is the target audience for the Sigma BF?
I think you kind of, nail on the head there. Like, I think it is for people that would probably be into Leica. If you know the history of Leica, there was a camera that was similar in the Leica TL, which was had a very similar vibe to it. And so it's funny. I actually was like, I wonder if Leica, even partner with Sigma to do the BF. I mean, you have Leica Log, so they've had some hand in it as far as licensing. And so I think it goes for that audience. I think it's very much like, I think early on people were talking about how this is for cell phone users that want a camera. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. It's very simple. But cell phone people that want a camera still want something that's a little bit smaller. And maybe that's, who would get it is people that don't want something as small as a cell phone to fit in your pocket, but something a little bit bigger, then yeah, for sure. Then I would say this is for them. But I do think it's for people that buy cameras either as a hobby or they want the experience. They want that experience over functionality, and there's a lot of times where that's me. Like I want the experience and the look over functionality. I mean, that's one reason why I made the FP my A cam for a year and a half, is because none of the cameras I was shooting with at the time matched the image that the FP was giving me. And, I have tried to force some of my Lumix cameras into that spot. And as much as I love my Lumix cameras for as much of a workhorse as they are, they don't fill that void for the premium image that I'm used to with Sigma cameras. And there's a variety of reasons for that. I will say the S1R Mark II, which is what I'm filming on right now, I think it's one of the first ones where I'm genuinely like, okay, no, this image rivals what I'm used to. Just the way it captures skin tones and, all the detail. I really do like what the S1R Mark II does. But that's one thing that for me is like, I know this is almost a no-brainer. Like, I love Sigma colors. And if you're not familiar with the history of Sigma cameras, Sigma is well known for cameras that capture amazing colors. They have their own sensor technology, which is the Foveon sensor, which in a nutshell, like has its strengths and weaknesses, but it is there to give you a color rich film like look. And so image quality and color fidelity with Sigma has always been one of the most important things. And so that is one reason why I know I personally pre-ordered mine. And so I think it comes down to going back to who is the target audience. Yes, it could be people that are used to cell phones and want to step up. It's a little bit pricey of a step up, in my opinion. But I do think it's for kind of people that like the idea of Leica, but like you said, they just can't stomach spending $4,000 to $6,000 on a Leica camera. I'm really interested to see what so when they sent us a sample unit, it came in like a Sigma Pelican. And I have a feeling that and I may be completely wrong, but I have a feeling that that's going to come in a premium box as well. And that would be that Leica experience. You're getting that premium box that has the unboxing experience. When you unbox it, you get this amazing little camera. And like it goes back to, it's a luxury camera for people that want that Leica experience, almost like a Leica Light, so to speak.
And I feel like that's even goes back to that whole Apple ideal of the entire thing is about the experience less than the specs, because even though the majority of people, at least especially in the US, use iPhones typically spec-wise on the camera capabilities, the spec features, the software is typically always at least 1 to 2 years behind competitors like Samsung. But when they do roll out products, they tend to give a better UI experience overall. So I guess with all of that said, kind of transitioning and pivoting this conversation now towards the LUMIX S9 versus the BF, what do you see kind of being the main differences between these two cameras?
Shockingly a lot, if I'm honest. Like, there's so much difference between them. There's a lot that they're alike, probably the same frustrations and the same quirks that people had with the S9 you're going to have with the BF and then some, if I'm honest. But it is the S9 can still be used for a lot of people as a B or A cam without the painful experience of trying to figure out those quirks. I think that's where Lumix, where its niche is they are workhorse cameras. They are, if you're a working professional and you need a good solution. That's what Lumix cameras are amazing for. And the S9 is kind of like it's exactly that. It is a pro Lumix camera scaled down, put into a smaller body. And so if you're already in the ecosystem, you're already used to Lumix color science or the workflow, and you want a good travel cam, dad cam, the S9 and not to mention the price tag is considerably lower than the BF. Then that is an amazing travel cam, dad cam that you can utilize. I've talked to people ever since I've done some of my S9 videos over the fall that are using the camera literally either A cam, B cam. Like it's not like, floating in the back as a C cam or BTS cam. Like they're using it aggressively, and you can do that. Now, can you do that with a BF? 100%. I am ready to film social media testimonies with the BF. Like that's the challenge I've put out for myself. Is that a smart challenge? We'll find out. I'm going to do a podcast tomorrow, and I'm going to film it on the BF just to put it through its paces. Now,
yeah.
Would I do that if I was getting paid thousands of dollars? No, because I need something that I don't have to know, like the quirks, or I don't have to deal with quirks. I want something that is a workhorse. That's where I would use something like the S1R Mark II. And we talk about the S9 versus the BF. I mean, like for $2,000, for another $1,000, a little bit more, you can get Lumix's flagship camera, so like it is all what you're trying to do with it. It is all what you're trying. I am in a fortunate situation where I can spend a little bit of money on a camera that has quirks. I can pick and choose when I want to use it. I have my choice of cameras. If my office has a ton of cameras in it right now, some from Lumix that they've sent to me, some that I've purchased, namely like my Sigma cameras. I'm a collector. I like to think of myself as a camera collector and as a hobbyist before I'm a professional. While I run the channel, while I do some freelance work, I have my cameras for that. But I love collecting camera gear. And that's why this was a no-brainer for me. Again, that goes back to would I recommend it if it was your only camera over something like the S9? Absolutely not.
And I feel like that's where the difference is between Sigma and Lumix, not just on the playing field of the Sigma S9 versus the Sigma BF. I'm sorry, I said Sigma S9, didn't I? The Lumix S9 versus the Sigma BF. I think it really comes down to actually a bigger perspective of just the companies, Lumix versus Sigma, have completely different mindsets when designing specifically cameras. Lumix, similar to what you said, is focusing on the prosumer market, on the content creator market, where this camera, they're pitting everything into a camera at the price point it is at. I mean, the S1R Mark II is a great example where it's shooting 8K, it's shooting ProRes RAW, it has amazing IBIS, it has a ton of great features in it at a $3,300 price point. And it's amazing, The S9, which I don't even remember what the actual price is. I think it's like $1,299, I believe, brand new or something like that.
It's on sale. I think it's on sale right now.
It's always on sale. So it's like I saw this camera going for like $900 to $1,000, but it's shooting 6K open gate. It has all the video specs, well, not all of them, most of the video specs that the S5 II and 2X have, just in a smaller body and design. So I think ultimately it is two different camera target audiences. Lumix is for that prosumer, the content creators. Meanwhile, the Sigma is more for the enthusiasts, people who just want to enjoy the experience, people who probably do have a little bit more money to kind of spend on nicer items and just want things for novelty's sake and just want things that have no intentional purpose to be set into a place point where it's focusing on on production and on set, but it's more used as kind of a camera that's designed for style, that's designed to just have an entire user experience, where meanwhile, all the Lumix cameras are more designed for being on set and actually used on productions. Yes, you can do that with the Sigma BF, the Sigma FP, but it's more designed to be kind of more of that enthusiast camera. Now, I am curious. Go for it.
Can I kind of follow up with that? Like,
yes,
I think there is a point to which kind of add on that. There's two things to mention with this, and that is the fact that the BF is definitely for those people that want the experience. I think I'm one that I own cinema lenses because I enjoy the act of pulling focus. I love the feel. It's that emotion that I pull out. Again, is that necessarily the case for like when I'm doing testimonials or doing interviews or doing podcasts? No, I want my workhorse. But if I'm going out to shoot, I want something that's going to motivate me to shoot. And that's where, Sigmas are great. But the other thing to mention, the second part to that is, you and I saw the partnership from Lumix and Sigma kind of evolve over the last 6 months to a year, where, you're selling Lumix gear on Sigma's website and vice versa. I genuinely think that we're getting to the point in L mount where we're trying, and I'm not going to speak for all of L mount, but there's starting to be clear lines of which company does what. If you want a budget-friendly workhorse camera, Lumix. If you want a budget-friendly cinema camera, Blackmagic. You want a luxury photo experience, Leica. You want a maybe more budget-friendly shooting, luxury experience, a more budget-friendly luxury experience. That's maybe where the Sigmas come in. And not to mention, like, Sigma this whole time is still primarily a lens brand. And so when they put out cameras, like, the whole point of this camera was, and I don't know who officially said it, but it's a passion project from the CEO. This is something that I feel like that's every camera from them, is like, they like making cameras, but they're not a camera brand. And so, those are things to take into consideration. And I do appreciate that there is not as much of a blend within the L mount ecosystem, because it is clear of, like, if you have an intent and purpose in how you shoot and what you shoot, there's clear lines of which brand to go with.
Well, Anson, before we kind of get into this last and final question, landing the plane here, where can people and all the lovely guests listening today check you out, and where do you want to send them?
Yeah, check out the channel, Anson & Co. on YouTube. That's kind of the primary place. If you want to see some stills, or even just some like off, my Instagram is kind of like Wild West. I'm not as curated as I am on YouTube, although I am getting less curated on YouTube with these BF videos. They're very unstructured, and I'm actually enjoying them, because I'm not like producing as much as I used to with these videos, because I'm just trying to get the information out. But yeah, Instagram, Anson & Co. That's probably where you would, if you ever want to like chat with me, that's where I chat. And then come watch some BF videos, or that, for that matter, my Lumix videos that will come out whenever my loaner period for the BF runs out. So
last and kind of final question, even though the Sigma BF literally like within the last couple of weeks just got announced, what are you personally hoping to see from Sigma kind of going into the future? Are you looking for a Sigma FP Mark II, maybe a new camera, the Sigma GF? I'm just joking. That's a stupid joke. But yeah, what are you kind of hoping for Sigma in the future?
That's a good question.
In terms of cameras, not lenses too, by the way.
Oh yeah, no. I have a lot of answers for just even cameras. In the immediate future, I'm hoping that a lot of the things that they're doing with the BF gets put in their FP line. I would love Leica Log 10-bit to come to the FP line. I don't know if that's a physical limitation of the camera, but I would love that. There, are some other things that are in the camera that I really hope come to the FP. Long term, I don't think they're done with the FP line. Mr. Yamaki, the CEO, has said that they want to evolve the line. This is my first reaction when I saw the BF being so photocentric. Okay, let's make some room for an actual cinema camera. And that's what I'm truly hoping that happens, is they take a little bit from LUMIX with the box design of like the B series, take a little bit from the BF, and make a cinema camera. That's what I'm hoping. But at the same time, if they do make another FP with the same exact design, maybe with updated sensor, maybe a Foveon sensor, that would be kind of dope. I'd be happy with that as well. It's a weird world where I'm considering the FP the pro version of what Sigma does. And so I'm hoping that they invest more in this pro line of cameras, or pro line of cameras that they have. But yeah, I think those are a couple of things that I hope that they do. I hope that they keep on enhancing. I already love the camera, but there are a couple of things where I'm like, this could get better. And I know that they will. They're very good at doubling down on what they're doing and wowing us in a weird way. There's a lot of room for growth with this little camera, and so I'm hoping that they achieve that growth with this.
Awesome. Well, sweet, Anson, thanks for joining me on this conversation and episode today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And if you guys enjoyed this conversation with Anson, you can check out another conversation I had with him right here. YouTube recommends you might like this video right here. Until next one, guys. Peace.